There are many stories with different versions from different persuasions. But let's see what happens when we put two of these together according to Birbal, that character that we know grew up from being a peasant boy to become the chief advisor and confidant of King Akbar. One day, when Birbal and King Akbar were riding, in the middle of winter it was, beside a lake, and suddenly King Akbar was thirsty. So he alighted from his horse and dipped his hands in the lake to drink. But he said, "Oh, this water is so icy." And then he had a thought, because King Akbar loved to give challenges to people. And he said to Birbal, "I wonder, can you find a man who would immerse himself in this icy lake for 1,000 gold pieces?" And Birbal immediately said, "Done." And he rode his horse off into town. And after some while, he found a man, a poor man, who earned barely a subsistence living, working as a porter, carrying people's baggage, who was willing to immerse himself in the icy lake to earn this amount, to bring well-being to his family. So it was arranged. The porter was duly taken to the edge of the lake at evening time, where he was immersed in the icy waters of the lake. The next morning, when he was taken before King Akbar, King Akbar said to him, "How did you survive in that icy water?" And the porter said, "Well, I saw the light of a lantern in a house at the edge of the lake, and I focused my attention on that light." "Oh," said King Akbar, "then you have negated the test. You will not receive the 1,000 gold pieces." Well, of course, the porter was mortified after this great hardship to receive nothing. So he went to Birbal to ask his advice, and Birbal said, "Leave the matter with me." Now, Birbal had to present himself to King Akbar every day. But the next day, Birbal did not arrive at King Akbar's court. So King Akbar sent a messenger to see what was delaying him. And Birbal sent back the message, "I will attend to King Akbar and be in his presence as soon as I have cooked my chichiri." So the messenger came back and gave the message to King Akbar, and King Akbar waited and waited and waited, and Birbal did not arrive. So impatiently, King Akbar took himself off to Birbal's house, and there was Birbal in the kitchen with a tureen suspended from the ceiling and a candlelight on the floor. And the king said, "How do you think you're going to cook Cherry in that way?" And Birbal said to King Akbar, "Well, how do you think a man can keep warm in icy water by the light of a lantern in the far distance?" King Akbar learned, of course, his error, and the porter was paid his 1,000 gold pieces. And then there's that time when we know there were many of the other advisors in King Akbar's court who were jealous of Birbal and his way with the king. So they plotted against him and conspired to convince King Akbar that Birbal was stealing the king's treasure. Of course, this was punishable by death. What could King Akbar do? But he did love and revere his confidant and advisor. So he said to him, "I will give you a test, and if you pass the test, I will spare your life." Again, it was the middle of winter. King Akbar said, "If you can stay naked on the roof of my palace throughout the entire night, I will not have you beheaded." So, of course, this test came to the ears of all the populace, as, of course, these things do. So, after the night of Birbal being naked on the roof of King Akbar's palace in the middle of winter, when there was ice and snow on the ground, many of the populace came to the courtyard to find out what happened. And King Akbar, and of course those other advisors, wringing their hands in pleasure, thinking that Birbal would be dead from the cold, found Birbal not only still well, but actually sweating. And when he was asked how he did it, he said, "Well, when I came up onto the roof, I found that there was a huge stone loose in one of the parapets. So I spent the night rolling the boulder back and forth across the roof." Well, of course, the populace cheered because Birbal was a fine fellow. They held him in great reverence, really. But King Akbar had the thought, well, yes, Birbal has prevailed, but now he's made a fool of me, and so I still have to lop his head. Because King Akbar was between a rock and a hard place, you might say. But when this was presented to Birbal, he said, "On the contrary, my great monarch, it is you who have prevailed, because you have proven to the populace that you are wiser than the sum of your useless advisors." is the deep truth embedded in these two stories that have versions according to different persuasions? What is it? It is the deep truth that's embedded in these two tales.